Shalom. I am Rabbi Michael Panitz, speaking to you from the pulpit of Temple Israel in Norfolk, Virginia. I'm going to discuss a serious and difficult, even sad subject today. My subject is entitled, An Ancient Monster Awakened. Something about the human imagination is drawn to the lurid. I still remember a particular detail of the middle school lesson I learned over 50 years ago about the Mesoamerican empires prior to the arrival of the Spanish in the 1500s. To varying degrees, the leading states of that era, the Mayan, the Aztec, and the Inca empires, all practiced human sacrifice to their gods. It would be comforting to know that human sacrifice is an abomination completely behind us in our progress as a human species. That is, it would be comforting were it true. But alas, there are disturbing reports of isolated instances of this practice even now. Just this past October 17th, a bizarre news story came out of Jamaica. A pastor, Kevin Smith, and a number of followers in his Pathways International Kingdom Restoration Ministries were arrested in a police raid on his church in Montego Bay. The raid was triggered by a call to the police. Allegedly, one woman who had attended the church that day fled the building upon witnessing another female worshiper's throat being slashed. And the caller reported that a human sacrifice had just been perpetrated. Later in the week, as Smith was being transported to Kingston to face judicial charges, he died in an automobile accident. Reports of the goings-on at that church suggest that Smith was leading a cult. In one of the church pamphlets, Smith is designated, quote, former crown ambassador of the throne of Nubia Sheba, globe traveler to over 100 countries worldwide, and Yeshua HaMashiach, end-time prophet to the nations. We hear unhappy echoes of Jim Jones and the mass suicide in Guyana. But even cults function against a background of a set of political, cultural, and religious expectations cherished by its members and exploited by its leaders. Since this report comes from Jamaica, we should ask, what aspects of Caribbean religion and culture have kept the possibility of human sacrifice alive, such that, in the hands of a cult leader, that potential could be made all too actual? A number of Caribbean religions founded by African slaves feature a mixture of diverse systems, Christianity, and the slaves' native African traditions. In some of these faiths, such as Vodun and Santeria, the African religious heritage is seen in animal sacrifice. But in one such faith, human sacrifice is also part of the legacy. This is Palo Mayombe, a combination of elements of the West African Yoruba tribal religion and Catholicism. The term Palo Mayombe is an adaptation of the Spanish, a reference to the stick customarily used by practitioners in their magical rituals, stirring a particular cauldron that they need to keep infusing with certain animal products. These rituals emphasize the use of human remains. Hence, the religion's adherents have been connected to grave robbery and cemetery desecration. But they also move into the territory of ritual murder. While the other religions I've mentioned run afoul of public sanitation laws and draw the ire of animal rights groups, adherents of the Palo Mayombe religion have, at times, of course not all the time, been implicated in more serious felonies, including religiously inspired ritual murder. This is marginal, and of course it's marginal in the Western world today. But in the time of the Bible, the neighbors of Israel did practice human sacrifice. The Bible condemns it often. The Bible's rejection of human sacrifice begins with a powerful story about Father Abraham, whose life story we are reading in the synagogue during these weeks of the year. In chapter 22 of Genesis, Abraham is told by an angel of the Lord not to sacrifice his son Isaac. The story is problematic, but the bottom line of the narrative needs to be kept in mind. The practice of human sacrifice is rejected decisively. The key passage is verse 11 and 12. The Lord's messenger called out to him from the heavens and said, "Abraham, Abraham!" And he said, "Here I am." And the messenger said, "Do not reach out your hand against the lad. Do nothing to him, for now I know that you fear God." The message of the story in Genesis needs to resonate today. And this is true in two senses. From Central America to Central Africa, children are still being victimized by being forced to become child soldiers. More broadly, the violence of the human heart still adopts the rationalization of religious sanction. Thus, jihadists and others from various religions commit murder in the name of God. The angel speaking to Abraham needs to be heard today. May we connect to God by cultivating peace and by raising children to know a world of shalom. Amen.